As I made my way along the grand, open and empty hallways, I again attempted to divine why Professor Kanar would need to speak to me. He was among one of the most recluse and least seen of Trennis's senior teaching staff, and rumors said he had not been seen outside the inner halls in centuries or longer. I had only met him once, during my unit on advanced anti-aerial combat, and while I had passed, it had been a close thing. I didn't think he favored me at all, especially with the way he drilled me on my archery form. I looked down again at the summons that had been delivered to my room, instructing me to pack my gear and make ready for an advanced instruction unit, and still found the missive to be lacking anything in the way of explanation as to the true nature of this unit. As far as I had been concerned, I was set to leave next year. I was only taking classes to pass the time until then. One should be careful when walking these old halls, not paying attention. The sound snapped me from my thoughts, and I immediately saw Professor Kanar leaning on a pillar about 20 feet ahead of me. He seemed amused at my shock as he motioned for me to follow him, shattering the silence with small talk as we headed for his private office. Once we arrived and I followed him in, the professor began to question me intently on my life, my goals, and my motivations. We spoke at length about the whys of combat as much as the hows, and about when direct force was better than soft action, and when it was not. Over the next couple hours, we spoke on nearly every subject I could think of, and the professor seemed pleased by most of my answers, although it was hard to tell, even with the degree of articulation that the professor's faceplates were capable of. Do you know what the bow you sold to the school to cover your cost of training was? Beyond being an old relic from the early days in Newarth, that is. The question caught me off guard. There weren't many who knew that I had paid for my training in trade with the old unpullable bow I had discovered as a child in the woods outside the grove of Newarth. I shook my head as I saw the professor reach back and take the very same bow from a rack behind his desk. What we have here, young Data-Leaf, is a Teltechian Power-Bow. You most likely thought this a bow that could not be drawn, perhaps some sort of art piece? That its artistic or historical value is what got your classes paid for? He pulled on the string, with it only giving a slight bit. If you know how to use it, it is perhaps one of the most adaptable and powerful non-magical bows in the realms. To make his point, he gripped the bow tightly and drew back and released the string, while squeezing a series of places on the grip with his hand. The sound of the string snapping back with an audible pop made it clear the vast force that was on display. My eyes widened at the display of power. Would you like to learn? With a most clear smile on his metal face, Professor Kanar asked with mischief in his voice. A few hours later, and I was able to make the bow function reliably, and was still in slight awe of the power held within the nondescript bow now in my hands. The professor had spent the time guiding me in its use while explaining the history of the weapon, as well as the details of how I could even earn the ownership of the bow back, perhaps, in exchange for working with the professor for the next few years as a guard, representative, and scout. He had, in his words, in the field of research to conduct, and wanted to avoid as much hassle and attention that his form would no doubt bring as possible. With the secrets of this Power-Bow in my hands now previewed to me, I could see why he chose me for this weapon and these duties. He described them and couldn't agree fast enough when he finally asked if I was amenable to his offer. By the 9 and 4, welcome back to the library. I am the recorder, and in this entry, we will take a quick look at a Teltechian take on a common and ancient weapon, bows, and how they have created a form of arrow launcher that allows for the delivery of extremely potent and accurate fire at ranges well beyond the normal standard. As my perceptive patrons are aware, this is just going to be a brief look at this weapon and its potential. A Power-Bow is a bow that uses a combination of techniques and technologies to provide vastly improved performance, while being durable and capable of use with only minimal training, relative to the training required to use a bow proficiently, that is. Among the devices and materials at play are various pulleys, springs, as well as the bow's arms being made and bent in a recurve fashion, as well as the use of something the Teltechians refer to as memory metal. They use this to create a massive increase in the amount of force the bow can impart to the arrow, while not increasing the draw force of the bow itself. By drawing back the string, a charge can be built up within the weapon. This charge then can be used to force the arms of the bow and the springs as well, all made from this memory metal, or at least substantial portions of them are, to return to their resting positions with great and instant force. This, of course, increases the already high power already being applied to the arrow, and when done correctly, can see arrows fired with ballistic levels of force and penetration at ranges far beyond that of standard bows or even crossbows. A product of the Teltechians, the Power-Bow is relatively rare, as it is seen as more of a recreational toy than a weapon by its inventors. When compared to the many advanced ballistic and energy weapons that the Teltechians have available to them, it's not hard to understand this point of view. However, to those that are aware of their existence and with the skills to make full use of them, a Power-Bow can be one of the most highly sought prizes out there for an archer, as several elven and Man'ari archers have shown what the weapon is capable of over the years. However, as it is capable of easily punching through nearly any armor or wall, it was often considered too dangerous of a weapon to employ within a city or the like. This is, however, a worry without merit for a properly trained user, as they can adjust the tension and resistance the bow puts out, and thus the power of the arrows fired from the Power-Bow. This allows for a skilled user to make shots capable of punching through enough walls or intervening objects to strike the target, while also ensuring that it gets stuck in whatever wall it hits next, should it make it through the target. Of course, a large degree of the secondary effects of this weapon can be mitigated or enhanced by the arrows fired from the Power-Bow, not even broaching the possibilities of magical ammunition. Just the material can engender vastly different effects, as materials such as wood's tendency to shatter under the stresses involved in striking help prevent over-penetration to a degree, where certain metals will provide assurance that everything on the path of the arrow will not only be penetrated, but most likely badly damaged by the passing of the arrow. Variances on the arrowhead's shape and material also provide far more options for the user, just like a normal bow. limited only by the fact that they are rare and relatively unknown, power bows are a mighty weapon in the reserves of any lucky enough to lay their hands on one, and when used properly can prove absolutely terrifying, as arrows capable of breaking through steel and stone walls from distances unbelievable rain down on the heads of those unlucky enough to be on the receiving end of a power bow's fury. This fury and destructive potential only increases once the suggestion of magical enhancement or ammunition is added to the conversation. And as such, this is a matter for further exploration in a future entry. With this brief look at the Teltechian Power-Bow at its end, I hope you can see why this toy of the Teltechians is seen as such a prize for those who both know of it and can make use of one. I have been the Recorder, and until you next make your way back to the library for your next entry, my perceptive patrons, I want to thank you for your time, your interest, and your support. Thank you. Now, by the 9 and 4, be well, take care of yourselves and each other. If you'd like to contribute to the further exploration and explanation of the realms, please consider leaving a comment, a like, and sharing the video around. I read all the comments and make efforts to reply to each. Thank you for helping to grow the channel, and know I look forward to each and every one of your comments. Other methods of support can be found in the channel's description. Thank you for watching.